Hello, it's starting up. Welcome to another episode of HEX Therapy Live. I'm your host, Maddie Allen, with special guest, the Joker.
Hello there, my fellow Hexicans. It is always good to see you, right?
Yes.
How goes it, Mr. Allen, and all the Hex crew? Why is my hair not doing the right thing? Hi.
I'm super excited to have you on here, and I wrote a little description to kind of get our discussion off to a good start, and because I think tonight we'll be able to talk about a lot of psychology and what the state of the world is in now with mental health and finances, as well as how Hex kind of could fix this in some ways.
Mental health and the way that the world is in dismay, right? The craziness as you see in Wall Street, right? The craziness you see in the streets of the world, and of course in this political nonsense that's been going on. But we all know who runs the show, right? We all know that there's this little top 1%. And
That's
top
right.
1%.
Yeah, they yeah, we got a lot to say about that. The last night I was getting inspired by like kind of researching a little bit more about what it was about the movie The Joker from 2019 with Joaquin Phoenix that really moves me when it comes to mental health. And so I wrote this little description that broken systems create their own monsters.
Oh, I like that.
We are all clowns.
Yes.
DeFi stops Wall Street from short squeezing our attention and mental health. HEX programs mental health into money. Stop broke games. Hashtag GameStop. Hashtag Wall Street bets. And as we know, HEX went up a lot in 2020, was the best performing asset. And it also pays 40% APY. And that's all possible in short because Bitcoin went up 400 million% in the past 12 years. And
can you imagine if HEX did that?
Yes. Well, no. I mean,
what would you do with all that money? That's
like,
funny.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to imagine. I was actually just before this, I was on stream with one of my buddies who told me about Bitcoin back in 2014, earlier maybe. And I was helping him go through and search for old Bitcoins that he might have on his computer. And cause I want to get him into HEX, and
did he have any?
Because he had just been buying things with it. And we discovered tonight that he spent 2.8 Bitcoin on 6 months of VPN back in 2012.
Oh, ow. That's such a man. I would really be pissed. Right? That's all I gotta say. What an error.
But I'm not going to tell you his IP address, so the VPN works,
VPN.
Yeah.
That's an expensive investment in your security.
So when we're practicing being forward thinkers and long-term thinkers, then I think that is relevant to the discussion of HEX. And that's certainly how the founder, Richard Hart, he got super pissed at me on the 24-hour live stream when I was talking about burning 10,000 HEX if I didn't complete my mental health goal.
Oh my gosh.
Because he really believes that the value of HEX is going to be incredible because he was there for the early days of Bitcoin. And so he, of course, he's the genius that created the economic breakthroughs that make HEX possible. But there's never been anything where you can save yourself from yourself by locking your coins, and you get rewarded to do so.
Oh man, and that is amazing. Richard Hart was real smart when he made that, because you got to go ahead and make sure you stick with your stakes. If you don't stick with your stakes, you're going to get wrecked, right?
Yeah.
Emergency end staking, all these people are going to have those little weak hands, especially coming soon on, March 15th, is it?
Yeah.
That's very special date. For all you that don't know, hold, right? Don't wreck yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Hold the line, right? Just like this Wall Street bets guy says, oh, we're going to go ahead and hold Doge or go at GameStop and all these dead concepts.
Yes.
You're not really doing anybody a favor. All you're doing is creating a financial revolution and an attack on the wealthy, which is good, very good, but you could do it even better. If you don't, crypto is that new Wall Street, right? We all know that. Well, why don't you do that in the crypto market? We literally have crypto by the balls. HEX, that's the way to do it. We have crypto hostage. That's why I love the coin.
Well, that's right. I mean, imagine if these pump and dump groups came up against HEX, which is where you can prove how long you're going to hold something.
They're going to get wrecked if they do that. That's all I got to say.
You can prove. And so it's like light years ahead of what they're doing. And so when we talk about, the Joker, first of all, I want to hear why you chose. All right. Before that, I want to hear. So you have a psychology background, right?
Yes, I have a master's in human behavior and organizational psychology, and I actually work for the U.S. government as an engineering psychologist, as the Joker. Listen. There is professional me, and then there is me. But yes, that is my background currently. I am going to pursue my PhD in clinical psychology and school psychology, but I have to wait until my little 2-year period is up with my probationary period, because that's kind of what happens when you first start working for the government, and then they'll pay for my PhD, which is like,
oh, nice,
hell yeah.
And now all I want to know is how much makeup are you wearing in your government ID?
I mean, I don't have makeup on, but I mean, the filter kind of translates to my ID. If I ever put it up to the screen, you'll see it like come from the filter. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what made you interested in going into psychology and in the future doing more clinical?
So back in the day, I'm hoping some people have heard this story, but I was always like bullied and stuff as a kid. A lot of people turned their backs on me. And I found that people were just generally weird. And I needed to know why, right? And I'm like, you know what? I need to know why people are like this, to include my own family members and people like that. And I made it a point to pursue that part of humanity. And not only that, but I want to do things to highlight truth, right? There are two different roads that people like to take. And one road is, the uncomfortable truth. And the other one is the sugar-coated lie, right? You will always see lines going to that sugar-coated lie. And people don't like it when you tell people either about themselves, opinions of third parties looking into what they're doing and what they're saying, or they don't like the reality of any situation, right? So if they see something changing in their world, they freak out and they start doing things to suppress and to muffle whatever's going on. You can see that in HEX, okay? People don't like HEX because it's different. A lot of people are like, oh, we're the Bitcoin maxis and we can do it better. Why should I go with them on the promise of Richard Hart? How could somebody be a good guy like him? They just don't get it. And the thing is, a lot of people don't like that change. So to highlight that part of it, I wanted to essentially write books and articles and conduct studies on why humanity is so fake, because they are, a lot are. And if I can highlight it, kind of pave a way so this way they can get to that uncomfortable truth where it doesn't hurt so bad, where they understand what it is, so they can make effective changes. The first process of solving any problem is identifying that it is a problem. And if you don't do that and you cover it with a blanket of positivity or whatever lies you want to tell yourself, you're not just doing yourself an injustice, but anybody who's involved, i.e. family members, friends, or someone or colleagues, you're doing them an injustice. So the way to correct this is to reshape how a human being perceives a problem. That's my overall mission.
I love that. Yeah. It connects the dots between what you even started observing as a child, and now as a very astute adult and somebody who can really understand people on very deep levels, right? You're able. I love your character too, and I think you almost answered my next question already as well. So you've said why you're interested in psychology, and now why the Joker?
The Joker is an overall symbol of anti-societal norms. Okay. When you see a Joker or a Joker character, the first thing that people do is they get intimidated. Who's that guy? Right? He's the different person in the room. He's the guy that does it different. He's the guy that when he goes into a room, not only does he understand everybody in the room and the situation for what it is, but he utilizes every aspect of what's in that room to his advantage, right? Now, in the movie, he does it illegally, right? He goes out, he blows shit up, and excuse my French, sorry. He blows things up and he, commits murder or whatever. I'm not about that, right? I'm not that guy. Don't look at me like that. However, I am the guy that says, here are my boundaries, okay? How do I operate? Not within the boundaries, but around the boundaries, okay? There's a very specific puzzle, so to speak, where it shows not puzzle really. It's more like the mazes or whatever. And people are like, oh, well, what's the quickest way to get through that maze, right? And people are like, oh, let me go up, down, whatever, down, left, right, down, and they eventually get to the end. Well, my solution is you go around the whole thing. Don't operate in those boundaries, right? Know that this is a maze. Know that your goal and your end game is on the other side. Well, I'm not going to operate based upon your rules. I'm going to do what I have to do to get to my goal. I'm not going to hurt people in the way. But if you understand what the morals, the values, the everything that's put in place in society, obviously don't do things that are going to make you feel bad and hurt people. But if it's not going to hurt nobody, operate outside of those boundaries. I mean, use the system for you. That's what, again, and going back to HEX, HEX literally broke rules in crypto, unwritten rules, but it's a rebel to crypto. That's Absolutely. What I love. I love that about HEX because that defines everything about my character.
Yeah, it even down to the name being somewhat of almost a misnomer or a meme, because the word hex means curse, and it's just the opposite, right? So in one of the articles that I wrote on my Medium account that talks about how HEX can cure mental health or help mental health, the subtitle was curing the curse of centralized currency, because that's really what I see crypto becoming in the future. It's really incredible stuff. And let me address real quickly. Sorry to the chat. I had been doing a test stream that said how to buy HEX with cash, and that's not ready to go yet. So if you're like waiting for that show to start, you should just come to this show, because that's going to be a recorded video. Sorry.
No, it's quite all right. It's quite all right.
And so the symbol, yes. And for those maybe who haven't seen the movie or just kind of want to refresh on this idea, in the Joker 2019, we've got a protagonist who is criticized by those who criticize movies for causing people to have a sympathetic view of violent people who have mental health problems. But I think that just the fact that the movie did address the lack of mental health resources in the country, and to me, that spoke to show, look at how bad the system can make people. And, you know, we're products of our environment. And so the Joker in the movie, you know, he was a struggling performer, or he was living in poverty. He was taking care of his mother who was ill. He was getting bullied by a bunch of other clowns, right? And he was an outcast. He was not accepted. There's in the promo, in the trailer for the movie, he's like sitting in a rundown counselor's office, you know, and they're like, they're both smoking cigarettes, and she's saying, well, I don't really have time to hear about your problems, you know, so, you know, and then they're just talking about pills and stuff. And it's, that's not the solution. The solution is to be more humanistic. The solution is to give people ways to lift themselves out of poverty, and to have a fair system for all, I think. And so I think that's where the connection for me happens between what moved me in that movie and your character, and now what's happening with Wall Street Bets and what's going to happen with HEX, right?
Oh yeah, man. That's a whole different animal. You know, we are literally bubbles out of a boiling pot of water, right? And you know, a lot of, you know, like what you were saying, you know, we are products of society. And one of my famous quotes is, "Don't blame me for me. Blame you for me," right? You're the ones that made me, constructed this personality into what it is, right? That's the nature versus nurture concept in psychology. You know, when you have nature, that's your biological self, your brain, your everything, your chromosomes, everything comes from a parent, right? You're supposed to be technically a copy of your parents in unison, right? It's technically what you are. However, the nurture part of it is what makes you do certain things in the environment that you're in, such as your phone, right? Are you on your phone a lot? Well, your phone is your nurture, right? Mm-hmm. You're here, you know your phone is there, and you know that's not in your nature because you weren't born with this thing in your hand. But what is in your nature is you might have an addictive personality because your parents did, and you're going to go ahead and use your phone, right? Same thing goes with life, right? The nurture aspect of it is what made these people do what they did in the Wall Street Bets. Okay. They've seen.
And can I jump in and make a point here? So people way overestimate, even scientists who don't specialize in statistics, which is not many of them, I don't appreciate how overblown the whole genetic argument is. It's not 50-50, right? It depends what you're even talking about, but there's no way to know. And the way that they know is they do these statistical analyses where they're looking at SNPs, which is single nucleotide polymorphisms, right? And that's, if you look for a connection between one behavior and 100 billion variables, you're always going to find variables line up. You could run the test 1,000 times and still there's going to be 5 that are going together. One of the biggest lie in all of psychology research was this stuff about there was a depression gene that they thought there was, the 5-HTP serotonin transporter allele was like, there were like over 1,000 studies published that showed that this was a thing. And then they ended up finding out that the original research was more spurious than they had thought. And so this is a misunderstanding. What genes are is your genetic code is a plan for what your body will do if the correct proteins are present, right? So it'll turn on or off a switch if the right protein is present. So it's not even, I would say it's much more environmental for many things. And then if there's some outlier behaviors, like maybe schizophrenia is going to be much more genetic, or is that just a function that it's much more common to have access to those proteins that would trigger that with that genetic code? So it can't be emphasized enough that environment matters, and that's the part that we need to change as a society. And that's what I try to do when I work with mental health clients is I try to empower them and give them the tools to change their environment. And so it's their social environment, right? It's their, of course, their medications might be important, but a lot of times it's omega-3. They've got electricity leaking out. We all do of our brains when we don't have the material that we need to insulate the electrical wires in the prefrontal cortex. So it's I've seen my life change because of omega-3, and at least a couple hundred clients. And so it's incredible, but there's no drug companies pushing that. You can't go long on omega-3 stock, or maybe you can, but it's it's much more profitable to, I guess, keep people in the dark. And so that's why I'm glad you brought up the point of nurture, because nurture is what we need.
Right. I mean, sure, there could be some disorders that, have chemical imbalances in the brain. There could be some form of impact to somebody where they fell when they were a kid and caused some damage to the brain.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of different, like you said, tons of variables, right? Which scientists these days, and again, we don't really know much about the brain. I mean, yeah, we know how it's structured. Yeah, we know what lights up when certain emotions happen and certain things happen and certain movement happens. I completely understand that there's a lot of fascination and a good understanding of what the brain does physically. However, when it comes down to the consciousness, the subconscious, the emotions, the everything that makes you, like, there's so much freaking theory out there. There's so much literature out there, to be able to say, well, this looks right because it connects to that. You can't. There's so many variables involved, and
in the neuroscience laboratory I worked in, we like my mentor obsessively tried to control for all the variables because it's because otherwise you lose your signal in the noise. And so we actually asked people, like we trained people before they came in for their brainwave study on quitting tobacco and cannabis, or some days we would administer it to people, and then study their attention and emotions. And we would train people, you have to go to sleep and wake up at the same time. You have to eat the same thing on the different experimental days where we're doing placebo versus active.
How do you control that?
Well, you pay people to do it, and you pick a very
discipline, like, group,
small subset of people within the college population that you can kind of but and does it really tell you that much? I mean, I think when you're looking at brainwaves, it tells you about other people. It tells us about the prefrontal cortex and about certain things, but there's a lot of um, cultural bias in research, as you probably
Yes.
know.
Well, yeah, and a lot of confirmation bias as well. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of scientists don't like to, say it, but they're always, they're doing things to, highlight that yeah, this is look, there's significance in this study that I did. They want to be the next person for a Nobel Prize.
That's right.
It is what it is. It's human nature. But going back to your nurture aspect of it, right? Interesting that you brought that up about how a person's environment essentially can change like their overall well-being, right?
Yes.
And that is so true on so many different levels. Now, back in the Vietnam War, okay, we'll go back that far. That in the mornings they went and they fought, and at night they partied hard. Okay,
Okay.
they were on all types of drugs. I'm talking about heroin and whatever they wanted, they got it. Right? It was prostitution. It was like involved. Okay,
Hmm.
because they didn't know if they were going to live the next day.
Uh-huh.
It was a horrible war. Well, a lot of people were afraid that these soldiers would come back and really just litter the streets with just people who were just hung up on drugs and that kind of thing. Well, when they came back out of the war, they were not these, homeless drug addicts. They returned to normal. And people were wondering, well, why? Why is that the case? Why do these soldiers, when they came back from the war, why weren't they addicted to these highly addictive substances? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they did a study, and I can't really quote the study. I don't really know. I don't remember where I heard this study, but there was a study where they took a bunch of rats. Okay, they put them in a container, or not container, but a little cage, and they had one water that was just regular water, and they had another water that was laced
Cocaine.
heroin.
Okay.
It was with heroin, and they found time and time again that the rat would overdose on the heroin, just keep drinking, and become highly intoxicated and just die. Right. Well, then they took another rat, which was a male rat, and they put the same situation, same variables. However, they added food, any food, like the best food, mates. They can mate with whatever mates they wanted, toys and the spinning wheel and everything inside the cage. And they found that, I think it was like, I can't quote the percentage, but it was significantly lower that the rat would overdose and die, and they would just drink the normal water. So that goes to show that, even if you were to change the surroundings of someone who's addicted to something, that they might not find the reason to continue that addiction if you better things in their life.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The majority of the population I work with is substance abuse, like severe cases, and that's exactly what we find in practice.
Yeah, and that's why when they say, well, you need to go to a rehabilitation center. Well, you see these like commercials with, it looks like a vacation resort. You got massages and working out, and there's groups there, and they're monitored, and there's like jacuzzis and all that stuff like that. That works because you're showing them that, look, you don't need all this to feel good. You got all this nice stuff to make you feel good without the substance.
Some of those work and some of them don't. Um, I actually know some people personally, like friends of friends, who like are involved in like a scam network down in Florida where they like buy up all the Google ad space for like recovery keywords, and then they run these call centers where they get $2,000 for each person they can convince to get on a plane and go to Florida, but only if you have insurance that they can bang for hundreds or thousands of dollars every time they drug test you. And not the people I know, but other people have been caught down in Florida, which is the recovery capital of the world, it's they got caught running recovery homes and like having drug dealers go and make people relapse so they would stay in the system so they could keep banging their
Yeah.
insurance. So it's
Yeah.
like, and what I find, because I only work with clients who are on Medicaid, so they make less than $16,000 a year. Um, the types of like inpatient places that can be afforded on that kind of a budget. um Medicaid is actually, it depends what state you're in. Sometimes it's actually a really good type of insurance, but for some things it a lot of times what I see when people go to rehab and come back, they come back to their same environment. And so
Mhm.
that
Right.
that nurture part doesn't change when they get back to their old people, places, and things. And
Right.
so if somebody's not um, ready to kill themselves with drugs, then I usually have them not go to inpatient and do intensive outpatient where we can practice like them actually making the changes in their home environment that are needed. Because if you're living with people and they're all doing drugs and then you go to rehab and you come back to the same people,
Right.
it
It's
doesn't
like you
matter.
want to stop drinking, but you leave the bar and you go back to the bar. Like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna have a beer, and you see everybody drinking, you're like, all right, give me a beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. I agree. There's of course a high, relapse rate at that point, right? Because they're going back into that world. They're hanging with the same friends. They're not making any adjustments in their personal life. It's essentially a bandage that gets ripped off as soon as you get home.
Hmm.
And I'm with it. Their overall well being, but it's a good. I mean, in my opinion, I think it's still a good like caveat to that, as long as that's managed as well, right?
Hmm.
Longevity needs to be, it needs to be tailored also, you know.
So yeah, I think that it makes perfect sense. The idea in that's presented in Joker the movie about mental health services being inadequate, and the society that's portrayed there as being not served well, and then the real environment that we have here, where you and I are both working in a field where in the helping profession, where we do see that there are a lack of resources, right? And that on kind of even going outside of people's mental health, which I mean, there are a lot of things that are still going to be related to that, like somebody's financial health, right?
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. Finances just add a whole layer of stress levels to any situation, and if you're not in any means to go ahead and even feed your son or your daughter or anyone, you see people starving that
Mm.
you love. I mean, there's people will do anything to survive, and that's the scary thing about these unprecedented times, that we got this horrible virus that's killing people, and then this brink of civil war mentality and all this craziness that's going on in the world. And one would have to wonder, like, what if the whole system collapses? Like, what do you can't go to the grocery store, what do you do now? Right, you go to your neighbor. Right, how do you feed yourself?
Mm.
And that's the big question. Do we, and so many people through nurture um are so used to just getting things at a push of a button. We would have a rampage going on, just for survival, let alone, I mean, they're not doing it because they want to hurt you. They're doing it because they have no choice.
Mm.
Desperation is horrible.
I hope that it's not a privileged perspective that I have, that things are actually more hopeful than they seem. And I base this off of my work, with people who are living in poverty, and but I do see a lot of hope in the world. And even if we didn't include HEX into the equation, I think even without that, that there is a lot of evidence that shows that the world is becoming a much better place over time. But I think that we have this like recency bias that like, you know, there's things have a normal up and down. When I work with people who are getting off drugs and so they're not self-medicating their negative experiences that they're having in their lives, and they're not numbing themselves, then they start to not only get the ups that some of them have been missing, but then they also get more downs as well. There's a normal up and down in life, and if you're not numbing yourself to that, then you start to experience it more. And so I think it can be hard to appreciate, like, but for example, women didn't have rights for 100,000 years until like 70 years ago, right? Like
True.
that wasn't even a thing anywhere in the world, more or less. That's major progress. And the amount of people who starve in the world is at an all-time low. Now that, there's a counterpoint to all these things, and like,
Right,
I'm not
right.
saying that because I'm really pissed off at income inequality. And because I know, I, you know, I can't say a lot about, clients that I work with, but I can say, some people can't afford their water bill, like, so they don't have running water, or, so they have to go somewhere to somebody else's house to, take a shower or something. And it's, that's, and there are a lot of clients who go to food banks and stuff. And that's a good thing to have those resources there for them. But I think that, I think that the 50% of the world lives on less than $2 a day. And that gives them enough in other countries to still put food on the table, but not anything else.
Yeah, and that's that in its own. Yeah, there's hope. People are still feeding themselves. Like you said, hunger is at an all time low, which is great. There's a lot of support elements that are out there, and humanity isn't all bad, right? And that's truth, 100% truth. I've seen a lot of people helping one another, especially during these times, where they do see these as desperate times. They do see these as, man, I can't get by without a stimulus check because of coronavirus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people are seeking that resource because they need it. Unemployment is through the roof because of our unfortunate circumstance that we're in. And a lot of people, again, they feel helpless because they can't really go see their families, and it may seem chaotic because they feel like captive in their own homes. So they do have a very pessimistic persona on what's going on, right?
When we look at the macroeconomics of things, I think this is one of the most interesting things I've ever learned ever, is about how, if you look in throughout history, people who had access to hard money, they did better as a society and as individuals. And there wasn't as much degenerate behavior. There wasn't as much gambling. There wasn't as much impulsivity in people's behaviors when they had access to actual tools in order to save their economic energy over time. And whenever, throughout all times that existed, it eventually met an end because of centralized corruption. And
Yeah.
whether it was the king clipping gold coins down to nothing, or whether it's Bretton Woods, people getting all the other leaders of the world drunk and then drugging the guy who's supposed to give the speech that the world should use gold as its reserve currency. And, thankfully he didn't die, but, you got all the other world leaders drunk. You had them sign a contract they didn't understand, and now many years of American prosperity at the cost of everybody else. When you have the dollar as the world reserve currency and you print 30% more dollars in a year, and every other country is forced to settle their trade balances, and by buying dollars, you have stolen value from the rest of the world. And so not only are you putting trade barriers up with African countries and, installing military operations all over the world, but I think, so I think that there's a lot that centralized entities have to lose when it comes to currency and economics and stuff. And so it creates all these perverse incentives. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think that the media lies to people?
Of course. I mean,
how many levels deep so let's take the Wall Street bets for an example. What do you think of all that? Because there's the story that they're saying, and then there's the story you can find by going into the chat room, and then there's a lot more conspiracy theories beyond that.
So I don't think they're a bunch of financial thugs trying to just tarnish our, economic system. I don't think that's the case at all. I think what they were really doing was they're trying to revolutionize how we see our finances and also highlight the centralization of what's going on in our finances, right? And it's crazy because they accomplished their goals. They showed that, look at Robinhood. Look at these exchanges gatekeeping now that we're doing this, right? We're literally using what we have, okay, as far as tools to go ahead and buy our stocks and do the whole hedge fund thing. We have those tools. We're using what we have, and you don't like how we're doing it. So you're going to stop us from doing what is supposed to be a free market? So they literally showed the entire world that we are not a free market. I love that message.
Yes. So, and when I was doing some research on the topic, I went ahead and I bought $3 worth of GME at the top.
Oh boy.
On Robinhood, because I figured, so I had bought $97 worth of Bitcoin at the all-time low because Richard told me to, and just on Robinhood, I try to diversify. So I don't want my Bitcoin being held by Robinhood. I want to hold my Bitcoin, but I want to also understand how Robinhood works. So that's all I'm saying. I had $3 left over from that transaction. I had never bought $3 worth of a stock. Robinhood makes this possible because they supposedly don't charge fees. The way they make up for that is by getting kickback, or by selling your data so that hedge funds can trade on it before your order completes in 3 seconds. And so they can just sell it to you at a higher price because they know you're going to buy it because you've already hit the buy button. What Robinhood did last week is they took away the buy button for those of us who had it for GME. And they brought it back and they said, oh, you could buy one stock, only one share of the stock. And it creates this extremely interesting question of what's really going on here, right?
Felt like insider trading, really.
The country gets presented with a narrative, right? That that there was a group of Redditors who wanted to stick it to the man. And so they discovered that this hedge fund had gone way too short on something. They had bet against the company to the extent that they had been allowed to borrow 130% of the shares that existed in the company. So
right.
First of all,
more shares than existed.
Yes. First of all, that's derivatives, not part of the regular market. And so that's a criminal instance right there. And so that's interesting that that came up. But then it exposed this whole um, fee for order flow or something, whatever it's called, where Citadel is paying Robinhood to find out what the trades are ahead of time, and that's how Robinhood is offering people to buy into the stock market, and kind of gamifying the stock market. So and so it's like, well, is that good that they're getting people into the stock market? Like maybe that's good to get younger people to invest, right? So there's that narrative going on, and then there's the narrative, well, in this particular case of the GameStop stock, the Redditors like beat Wall Street because they basically caused some sort of liquidation or some sort of like major $1 billion loss to Melvin Capital, right? Who was illegally shorting GameStop. But then Melvin Capital gets bailed out, right, by Citadel, who's buying the orders from Robinhood. So it's like, and then, I followed some interesting characters when it comes to financial writers and stuff. And like, so the Dollar Vigilante, Jeff Berwick, they just sent me an email the other day talking about how was this whole Wall Street's bets thing a psyops, which like, we're like, you're never going to know. Like, I didn't know what a psyops was. Okay. Just like, even though I'm in psychology, like, I'm helping people like beat their addictions, not like studying like like system level stuff. And, so psyops, I guess, is like a psychological operation by the military. It's like a propaganda type thing. And, so there's this idea floating that like they're trying to basically trick the masses into getting into crypto, Bitcoin, which they've already bought into. And then that's going to be the way they're going to track your every financial move, which is what China already does. And then they're going to basically build some sort of layer 2, I suppose, like to tax you. And but then there's no privacy anymore in finances. And then that leads to more centralized power and a more totalitarian state.
Right. I mean, I haven't heard anything about the psyops part of it. I wouldn't put it past really anyone not to use it. But to centralize everything and to have more a totalitarian approach on things, that's always been the notion. Ever since I've read. It's very much about the 1%. It's always been about the 1%. They want to make sure that they see where you're purchasing, what you're purchasing, how you're purchasing. There's algorithms with AI that literally see what you're doing, so it could show you an ad to make you buy. So I wouldn't put it past them to use that.
The big question is whether the joke's going to be on them or not, because there isn't more than one crypto in the world. And so I know we don't have tabs on who created Bitcoin and where his 1 million Bitcoin are, who's controlling them. But, some people are saying the government. I don't think it was the government that created Bitcoin. I think it was a international criminal mastermind named Paul LaRue.
Bitcoin back in the day was highly sought after from like hackers in the deep web, and that was like a big use for Bitcoin. So
donating to WikiLeaks and stuff, right?
Yeah, like that was a big thing. Crypto was always seen as like, you want to get Bitcoin, you're probably going to go on a deep web and do some shady stuff, right? There was a little bit of a stigma attached to it at first. Obviously now it's a ton different. But as far as who owns the, or who made Bitcoin, I Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know why it would have been made. Different form of currency. I don't see a government making it, because government really would be pushing their own currency at that point, right?
It's kind of a paradox almost because um, basically, in order to make sure that there's no double spending in the invention of digital currency, you have to have transparency. That's why it's on the blockchain. That's why it's the most inefficient Excel spreadsheet ever created, because you have to distribute it to enough people to make sure that there are enough uh, robots and people watching to make sure there's no double spending to secure the integrity of the asset. But at the same time, that creates a situation where you can see every financial action that everybody takes in the system, and so it's at the expense of privacy. And so those are two really advanced like rights, in my opinion, that people have, is like your financial, your right to save and not have assholes printing trillions of dollars and giving it to themselves. Like, I see that as like a financial right, but I also see privacy as a financial right. And I used to be super interested in a certain privacy coin, um, and I almost like became like a streamer for that, and like wanted to build
Was it Monero?
mental health into it. It was not Monero, and but I decided that the best currency to program mental health into, which is my goal, um, is the one that has the best economic soundness and the best game theory.
Hmm.
It's not like nobody cares about privacy
Right.
until it's too late, basically, for them. Like, and I've already been censored on. I've been banned from Cash App for life and PayPal. So I'm like, you know,
What?
I'm like out there.
Holy cow,
They
man!
they flipped the switch and said, Maddie, you're out. Like,
I was banned on PayPal on one of my accounts. Yeah, I used to own a gaming community back when I was in college, and people would donate, for certain little in-game items for Gary's Mod. I don't know if you remember a game called Gary's Mod.
I'm
Um,
not into gaming, but that sounds interesting.
yeah, so it was like a server that it was a military role play server that I owned, and
Ah,
they could buy like certain skins to make themselves look a certain way and all that, and they were in the
oh,
form
cool.
of like a donation. So you donate X amount of dollars, you can get this in-game skin.
Uh
Well,
huh.
some people would retract their payments because they were jerks about it,
Uh huh.
and PayPal's like, oh, well, why are all these people charging back?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I have like 200,000 unique people on my website. So
Wow.
if I have all these people donating, well, not 200,000 that were donating, but quite a bit were, um, you know, obviously some are going to be charging back because they're malicious. They want the item,
Uh huh.
but they don't want to pay for
Yeah.
it, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
PayPal freaking cut my account because it was like, oh, it was too risky for them.
No way.
Swear to God. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. It was always too risky, too risky.
Do
I'm
you
like,
know
what?
what your percentage was, like ballpark of chargebacks?
Uh,
Was it like 5% or 1% or?
it wasn't so high. It was probably along like 7, 8, around
Hmm.
that. It wasn't like a huge amount, but it was like, people there were, I wouldn't say there were kids, there were teenagers that would, you know, buy a cash card or whatever and, you know, buy whatever they wanted to buy, and here you go. They would refund the money.
Fascinating. Yeah. There's a crypto company, I can't remember which one, but they have somehow solved the issue of um, chargebacks with crypto as like a fiat on ramp, because that was a big problem for a long time. Is um, in 2017 the banks said, "Oh wait, we can't let you buy crypto with credit anymore," and so they turned. But that was part of the reason, was because because I could just buy a bunch of crypto and, and then charge it back, and then I get the crypto for free, whoever was willing to take the credit card payment.
Right,
um
right, and
and
even content creators suffered because of that. There was actually a time where YouTubers or so not YouTubers, streamers would be like, and they would literally like curse out their audience, like, "Why are you guys doing this? You are." Yeah, every time
oh
that
wow.
they would donate to a streamer like a large amount, like $1,000, $5,000, something like that, and then literally that would get charged back and the streamer would have to pay a penalty because of that.
Whoa.
Yeah, because that would get charged back to the account. So, it was a big problem for a long time, and PayPal seen that as risky, and they would just cut the accounts.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think crypto in general, like, it solves that because it's a bearer asset. Whoever has it, that's the value. Like, that's where the value is. If somebody sends you money on PayPal or through a centralized system, then the centralized system can go back in 5 months later and say, "Oh, they never got their shipment of HEX merchandise, so we're going to pull back that money that we've already given you in your bank account." And so but what does that do, right? That creates it where you have to have a reputation that's good in order for people to buy from you with crypto, because otherwise, like, otherwise people are gonna give you money and you'll just run away with it. So
Right. And that's again, that highlights the importance of things being decentralized. um,
yes.
I'm very, again, I'm very happy that we have these things in place. And what's cool is they were highlighting, and again, I'm not really a big like knowledge guy on crypto stuff, but DeFi, right? DeFinance, is that what that is? DeFi,
Yeah, decentralized finance,
right?
DeFi.
Right, decentralized finance. So that is, I think, the new, or that's like the way to go in crypto, right? Not going to these exchanges and whatnot, like rather
Yes.
going to like the Uniswap, of the world, and the HEX, which is also a decentralized finance, right?
Yeah. HEX is a decentralized finance. Not only well, because you don't need to hold it on a centralized exchange, and because you don't need to go to a centralized exchange to buy it. HEX was launched right around the same time as the decentralized exchanges. The first ones were being released, and so HEX has had this great benefit to it, that you don't have to, give the government all your information. You don't have to rely on, an exchange holding your money, and then they can change the rules about whether you get it back or not. That's a major problem. Exchanges, they get hacked because it's the weakest link in the system.
Oh
So
yeah,
with the biggest reward.
yeah, for sure. But I see that being a Wall Street person's now kind of like look, right? Like I if I were in Wall Street and I were to see all this chaos go on and I see all this gatekeeping, and then it just highlights how much influence a lot of these exchanges have. I will look for that alternative, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
say I owned a whole bunch of GameStop stock and I wanted to buy more and I couldn't, right? And oh yeah, you could sell, but you can't buy. Well, okay, so now I'm relying on you, like to tell me
Yes.
when to start to spend my money, and to like it just, I would say, and I think again, this is the year of crypto, man. This is, I mean, yeah, it's 2017 was the boom and everything, but this is the year of
Yes.
crypto.
And pay attention to the cryptos or the crypto that centralized entities can't buy into. There are so many things about HEX that aren't fully understood about the master plan behind it all. I mean, if you are a high net worth individual, I don't even know if you could spend all your money to buy into the position of a shark right now, because how many, because what was it? There was a chart on Twitter just last night that was showing basically how much with these automated market makers, right? With Uniswap actually makes it so there's only a certain amount of HEX that's available to buy at any given time, and that's based on liquidity.
Right.
And so, sure, if the price skyrockets, then some people might bring more HEX into the system, but they bring it in at that higher price, and so it's actually measurable because there's not a bunch of middlemen and bots sitting in the middle deciding the price, and they make sure things don't go too high. And then the average person can sell it, right? They did not want GameStop going higher so that people could cash out higher, right? So that's why they stopped letting people buy it. And because that would not only, because it was going to have to be they wanted to leave enough for the hedge funds to buy to cover their shorts.
Right. Yep.
And so that's the crazy thing about that. But with Uniswap and other 1inch is the other main decentralized. I'm going to share my screen here real quick and just show what somebody posted on Twitter. You can mathematically know how much you would push the price against yourself whenever you if you want to buy HEX right now. Oops.
Ooh.
I resized the wrong window and it made it so I can't see anything. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so what is this telling us? This is telling us that if you wanted to buy $5 million worth of HEX, it would 10x the price. And if you wanted to buy 21 million, it would 100x the price. And if you wanted to buy, so a 100x would be, that would make the price $1, right? But it moves as a function of a square apparently. And so with $71 million, the price of HEX would already be $10.
So somebody just has to buy in $71 million worth of HEX and it's $10.
$10.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, whales! Come on in. My God, that is insanity. They only need 71 million to make it $10 per HEX.
Yes.
Oh, please do it, somebody.
That'd be a 1000x.
What?
That's how illiquid HEX is. That's what people aren't appreciating. And so this is math. I mean, that's all it is. And
oh my gosh. So and that's not unheard of in crypto, right? Like once we hit mainstream, it's a wrap, right? Like
yeah. I mean, that would be like everybody in Wall Street bets putting in like $100 or something.
Oh my goodness.
It'd be something stupid. And that's how it's going to be. HEX is just going to move like nothing that's ever existed because it's got so many fundamentals built into it. Like, so this is if somebody did a one order buy. Okay?
I need to screenshot this. I'm sorry. Let me just.
Sure.
Yeah, I like this little chart here.
And I'm going to make sure you can see who posted it too, because we want to shout them out.
Of course.
It's this is a kind of a new user. All is 11111 5 ones.
All is
on Twitter.
Hold on one moment.
Cinco uno.
Cinco uno. I like that.
So, and I've seen other people post things that are similar to this, and Richard talk about this. Now, this is with a one order buy, and then they would be buying anybody who has a $10 limit order, or actually be whoever has any hex who like sells into it. But then just like we saw on New Year's Eve, then people would move their hex onto Uniswap and sell it, and they would sell the price down. So it's like, it's not that hex would stay at this price, it's that that's the price that somebody would pay if they did a $71 million buy all in one buy order. So that's not how somebody's going to do it. They're going to, they're going to raise the price up to $1, and then they're going to sell a little bit to create FUD, and other people are going to sell to because they want to sell it at $1, and that's what they've been hoping for their whole life. And then
I'm not selling at $1.
The price goes even further down below below where it was or whatever, and then the whale can buy in even more at the lower price and everything. So I mean, but that's what they would have to do. You can't just come in and buy a bunch of hex, because there's not that much hex to buy, and that's by design, right? And there's nobody in the middle fixing the price.
Right. That's wow. That's a very eye-opening thing, and I guess that goes into, like how people right now need hope, right? As we were saying earlier, that this can certainly help someone's surroundings, right?
Absolutely.
And I as I mentioned at one point, I surround myself with a lot of people that are currently not in this scenario that they are financially free. I myself I'm not financially free. Okay. However, it's something that is a gleam of light in the distance, right? That's
Yes.
what it is. It's a gleam of light. It is a, hey, guy or girl, you have been working your whole life, right? We've been kicked down financially by this, fat cat, kind of system that is meant to kick you down, right? We're in this situation where these suits are doing everything they can to make sure you don't make it, that you just remain complacent. Be on your cell phone, distract yourself, keep working. We need you to do that, right? So we can remain wealthy, but you just do your thing, right? We'll pay you little bits and pieces to keep you happy. Want to go to Walt Disney? Work for 5 years, save up, right? Well, we go to Disney every day, that kind of thing. But HEX is like, these people that I said, surround with, and myself, we see HEX as like this, just, it's going to happen for us,
Yeah.
It's going to happen for us. And I can't thank Richard enough, or the community and Hexologist, because Hexologist is the one who rated me that day.
Yes.
To show me and us such a wonderful coin. And not only that, but show us in the beginning. We are literally, we are in the Bitcoin days of 2008 right now.
Yes. I love that.
That's where we're at. And we bought in. Hold.
Yes.
Stay right there. Just let it happen. And the magic's going to work. I can't wait.
Well, there's a degenerate inside of all of us, right? There's greed and fear, right? And I use the term degenerate only somewhat sarcastically, right? Because that's kind of part of the whole Wall Street Bets ethos, is like, we are degenerates, but like they're not really saying that they're degenerates. They're if you look at their analysis, they're having very deep, insightful thoughts about the market. They're at their core, they're trying to expose the corruption on Wall Street, but they're also trying to get rich, and they're also dumping on everybody's heads when they're saying hold, right?
Right.
And that's more bad behavior. It's like Robin Hood. It's like, wait, you're stealing from the poor to give to the rich. You've got it backwards, bro.
Yeah.
And like,
Well,
you're doing it under the name Robin Hood?
right. They said that Robin Hood is more like the sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah.
I started cracking up. But you're right. We are all innately. I don't want to say bad, but we all have impulses. We all have like the want to have more, right? Like that's
Yes.
always, we're always that. We're creatures not only of habit, but we're always trying to, mine, right? And that's where, a lot of these impulsive behaviors come from, because everybody has this notion, I want to be top dog. I want to be an individual. Nobody could be like me. I'm an alpha male, that kind of thing. And that's why they do these bad behaviors, because it's ingrained in us as human beings. Not every single person is going to want to be the same level or the same kind of bad, right? Some do it through, and that's where the 7 deadly sins come in. Some do it through, greed. Some do it through sex. Some do it through eating. Some do it through envy and jealousy and anger. There's a lot of those bad behaviors in all of us. It's just how do we be a good custodian of that within ourselves to actually do some good, right?
It's going to be difficult, okay? And I'm speaking from a seasoned position. So earlier today, I told you that I was helping my friend look for old Bitcoin. And I got so excited by the fact that he paid 2.8 Bitcoin for 6 months of VPN back in 2012 that all of my training went out the window, and we didn't even copy his wallet .dat file before we started playing with it.
Oh,
And
no.
okay, it gets worse. So then he downloads the old app that he used to use, and that Armory overwrites his original folder with the file in it. Just before I got on stream, that's what was happening. So then we get David Feeder on the phone, and he's an IT guy, so he helped us with some recovery, and there's probably a way to get the wallet file back. But it's like, he was saying, I don't think that there's any Bitcoin in here, and I was saying, dude, I bet you're Satoshi and just forgot.
Oh, my gosh.
So it was somewhere between 0 and 1 million coins. And so I told him, I was like, if you pay for this software to recover that file, I'll give you $20 worth of HEX to cover your costs there. Cause I really want to know, if there's anything in there. I also went on a mission to recover any old crypto that I may have lost track of. And I found the seed file for the private key file for 1 ETH that I bought on the Economist article back in like 2016. I paid $20 for 1 ETH, and it's like I found the file, but there's a password associated with it. So now I have to like try to figure out what that was.
Oh my gosh, you're like Sherlock Holmes right now.
Yes, yeah. It is like a treasure hunt, basically.
My goodness, that sounds like a lot. That's scary, but it sounds like a lot of fun.
This was like 4.5 years ago that I bought an ETH for $20.
Yeah.
I had to buy it with Bitcoin. Actually, I was looking because you can see on the Block Explorer what happened, and then I discovered that I also donated 0.12 Bitcoin to some online thing. I think it was like a torrent site or something. So
oh man,
I'm praying that maybe the transaction didn't go through. And I'll
and you
discover
get
it.
refunded.
Like, sorry, guys.
Right? You get all that Bitcoin back. Well, you know what's funny? You said that you're gonna pay him 20 hex or $20 worth of hex, to essentially get or his money back for that software, right? Well,
Yes.
you're
Part
gonna
of the
be
deal. Part of the deal also is if he finds any Bitcoin, he has to invest at least 10% of it into Hex.
Oh, I see. I see. Well, you know what's funny? You're going to be in the same position 15 years from now. And you're going to be like, man, why did I give him $20 worth of X back then 15 years ago? It's worth
I
so much
know.
money.
He's the guy who told me about Bitcoin, okay?
Right.
I think I'll be able to live with myself, you know?
It's funny because, like, I keep hearing these stories with, like, man, I bought like $800 worth of Hex or of pizza and Hex. Like, Hexologist said it, right? He said that and it's like, when like 15 years from now, what is the price gonna be of that pizza?
Yeah, that was the point, right? It was to for everybody to like, whoa, the day that he did that, and to create like, you know, a good story.
Yeah, it's funny though, because it's like all that money, and then whoever you bought the pizza from has all that money if they saved it, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That's funny. You know, I recently went through I recently went through a what the F moment. And that was with the whole Uniswap token. Okay. I was one that got 400 uni tokens for using
Congratulations.
Uniswap. I'm pissed that I sold it.
No.
Because look at the price. It's booming.
I looked at it.
It's way more than what I sold it for. I'm like,
Okay.
man, I shouldn't have sold that. I should have waited, and I
No,
would have
you
got more
should have
hex.
sold it. What do you mean?
I
No.
would have had more hex.
No, you wouldn't have.
It's
I did this experiment already. Somebody, Lily did it. She got her. I sent her $20 worth of ETH in June, and I showed her how to convert it into Hex. And of course, that Hex like isn't even, you know, that's like not that much Hex probably, but she qualified for the Uniswap airdrop, and we converted it all immediately into Hex. And then she got the big payday, which doubled her bag there, and it's staked out for 10 years. And so she's getting 50% APY. It's already been over 6 months. So that means her stack's 20% more there. And so if you look at her account, it's like $8,000 or $10,000.
right. I didn't think of that. I didn't think about the big payday and staking before. Okay, you're right. You're right.
And we need to remember something about Uniswap when we're gawking at the price, because you could copy and paste Uniswap. Like, Uniswap isn't, I haven't heard anybody explain to me how it's so special. I think it's just like another pump and dump situation where.
Yeah, it's definitely looking like that. Yeah,
so
for sure.
When Uniswap goes up to $100, don't kid yourself. Cause like, I really don't think that it's going to stay there. And I think it's just a total trap for people who buy in, but I'm kind of biased cause I promote a coin that like is just way better, like, than an exchange coin. It's a certificate of deposit for the blockchain, $7 trillion market, and like if your bank didn't do so much corrupt stuff, like printing their own money and pretending like it's real money to the point where it is, then like that wouldn't be a super profitable business. That's why in like 2006 or 2007, they were scamming everybody with overdraft fees and stuff. Like,
yeah.
What is explain an overdraft fee to me?
It's a scam. It's legitimately a scam. It's, hey, I'm going to let you go over just a little bit so I can charge you more. And not just a lot. Like you could go over $10. I'm like, wait, what? Why don't you just, and I always told my bank, I'm like, just don't let me overdraft.
Yes.
Like, just deny it. If I don't have the money, I don't have the money. But they're like, no,
Yes.
we'll let it go through for $10, and we're gonna charge you another $30 on top of that. It's a freaking scam.
Yeah, it's because they weren't making money off interest anymore. So that and Obama put in a law that said that they had to give you the option to turn off overdraft and everything. But I mean, it's still what the banks have done to this country. When I was on with Wales Only and Kareem the other day, we did an 8-hour stream on Tuesday, and Crypto Vince was kind enough to do timestamps so people can jump to the different topics we talked about. There was one on visualizing all the wealth in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've seen that website before, but it shows you that there's $1 quintillion worth of derivatives in the world.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Quintillion.
Jesus Christmas. I did see a chart that showed the distribution of wealth, and it showed how much more the 1% has opposed to the rest of the world. And it's like it dwarfs the rest of the rest of the country. Sorry, the rest of the country. It's really sickening. It's really sickening.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I like to think the world as a game of Monopoly that's already been played. Literally you're born and you're literally seated at a Monopoly board that has hotels on every space. Okay, it's already established by their families that help their families, that help their offspring. Okay, the people that, you know what, I'm going to keep the business with the family, my son, my daughter, they're going to get this type of money, the Rothschilds, those types of people, the Rockefellers, and of course there's other means where like big media is run by, a lot of people that have huge influence on how humanity purchases things, how they think, how they act, how they operate. And they pair that with the oil industry, the pharmaceutical industry. It's all monopolized in a way. And politicians are essentially lobbied to do more of what they're doing because they want to keep their position in power and keep their friendships,
Yes.
And then, of course, the whole gerrymandering thing with the country of how, specific, House of Representative members are put in or how their districts are drawn out so they have a higher probability of continuing their, it's all done to keep people in power. This, like I said, the system has many puzzle pieces. How do you put it all together? Especially,
you're blowing my mind, man. Like, game of Monopoly that's already been played. You're born into it. They already got Park Avenue and Boardwalk. They put up all the hotels there, and here you are. Like, don't pass go, don't collect your stimulus money. And you just have to keep going around and around while they extract wealth, and it's like you accumulate debt. It's like Monopoly with like debt and like derivatives and like, all these like sick realities.
Yeah. And that's the hard truth that again, going back to what I want to highlight, there is a hard truth. Okay. There is this, overwhelming understanding that you are not in control of the power. You are an employee. Here's the dice. Roll it. Roll the dice once. See what happens. And then, the American dream itself.
Snake eyes every time.
Well, exactly. Well, actually, no, not even. It's land on any space. I don't care.
Is that
I know
good
my
or
friend.
bad? I don't play dice.
Well, it's bad. Snake eyes is bad.
All right, snake eyes then.
Yeah, but they make you roll the dice and you go ahead and land on whatever spot you want. Because I know that if you're not coming to land on my spot, well, my friend owns that industry over there, so you're helping him out too. And we're going to control the market together, so you're still doing me a favor. right?
Yeah.
So it's a very cynical thing, and they don't want people to wake up. They want people to remain in this like dreamlike state, watching videos and distracting themselves away from realities, kind of like if it's a drug, right? The phone is overarching the scene as a drug. If you're just locked in like this most of your day and you have a lot of screen time, this is all you're doing, as you see our kids doing these days, and they're growing into this. Okay, what's going to end up happening is they're going to be mindless. They're going to follow orders and instructions, and not saying it's bad to follow orders and instructions, but also it's not good to follow orders and instructions, because eventually you fall into groupthink.
Yeah.
Right? You start promoting a narrative that helps other people and not yourself. And as a matter of fact, a specific website that I've been banned off of, that I'm not banned off of anymore, is known to do this. Okay. And this is a good example of what I'm talking about. Is they say D Live is D Love. That's one of their main things, right? And they also say, hey, you can go ahead and watch your streamer, right? Your streamer gives out the lemons in their chest, so this way you can grab those lemons and go to another streamer and donate to them and support them, right? And then the streamers themselves say, well, I don't like to cash out my money because I want to go support other streamers. All the while, these lemons that are being circulated aren't helping the streamers. It's giving them a false sense of this dopamine that's going on in their brain, that they're saying, well, I'm getting donations. This is really cool. I'm going to be a successful streamer, but I also don't want to be seen as a bad person. So let me go and spread the D love to another person, right? And they're going to do the same thing and the same thing. And every single time that money exchanges hands, it's 25%, 25%, 25% until it's
They're
nothing.
trapping you in their ecosystem.
Correct.
That's the play. That's Apple and Samsung and pick anything, Facebook. That's their business model, is to trap you in their ecosystem, extract rent and attention, sell it to the highest bidder. And all of a sudden, you can't have a revolution or a movement because you can't afford the ad space.
Right.
And because they're censoring you.
Right.
And
that's
they're
what
deciding what a fight is. I know maybe we're not supposed to go into it, but they're deciding what defines reality, what's joking and what's serious. And, how could you get any more ironic than having the name the Joker?
Right?
In that type of a situation.
Well, it's actually happening to me, right? And I've been strategically maneuvering that whole, I guess, push of what's been going on. You guys have seen through influence of community members, of highlighting things like this, right? Because the solution to groupthink really is having members question the authority. Well, why is this like this? Why, I don't care about being thrown out of the group. This is wrong, right? And that's what we're doing, and that's what again the Wall Street Bets was doing, and now even Richard Hart said it in one of his tweets. He's like, well, we're about to get we're all getting censored. This is, brace yourselves, boys. We're getting censored here. It's gonna happen. YouTube did it to Hexologist. Okay, so when people start rising up into other things, that's when the media is like, no. Go back down to where you were, right? And I keep hinting, and I hope somebody hears me. Make a HEX platform, right? And I know that Richard said it's not in the cards, right? He said that. But I honestly think it's important to protect our freedom to do what we're doing here, because decentralized is the way. We don't want an authority to tell us how to spend our money or what to think or how to do things. We want to make our wealth. Go out there and make your money. This is the beam of light. Don't let it only be the beam of light in finances and revolutionizing your own wallets or being the new whales. Take that money and make something great. that's also going to decentralize these crazy companies that are doing these things for their own benefit, because you are playing on that already established board of monopoly. And if you step out of line, well, not only will they discredit you, but they're going to make you like you're nothing. They're going to take away your voice.
I think you're right. I love your message of creating independent thinkers and decentralizing power and addressing these issues of censorship. This is the most important issue I think somebody could be speaking on. I mean, even more than mental health is you need to have systems in place to be able to speak the truth if you want there to be any free people left to choose to be mentally healthy and not having somebody else choosing for them to define what's right and wrong and to always have perverse incentives play out. I think one thing that I've observed is that whenever somebody tries to create their own platform, right, if they're successful, then what I fear has been happening is, so let's say I'm a corrupt government official. Okay. I'm not, but let's say I was. How could I stop a platform that's run by an alternative media organization? Well, what I would do is I would pretend to be a user of that platform, and then I would upload a bunch of illegal pornography, and then I would show up with a warrant to the headquarters of that new platform, and I would say, guess what? You're going to do what we say now, or we're going to indict you for this, and you're going to go to prison forever. And that's the battle that it got played out when Facebook tried to, I have like proof that that's what happened when Facebook tried to launch their own currency.
I remember that.
Yeah. The Senate Finance Committee sent letters to the entire consortium of 100 different technology companies. And the letters said, we're going to prosecute you for terrorism and child pornography if you participate in this system and anybody makes any kind of transaction along those lines. And wow.
That's the way that they bully you.
Yeah. That's where I'm getting the kind of reading between the lines, but it's not even so much between the lines, because that letter from the Senate Finance Committee to those firms was published on Twitter, and so it's like that tells you what's, and then you could see actually which companies backed off and which stayed in.
Right? Wasn't it like who was it?
And you can see who owns who.
Right. There were a lot of financial institutions in it.
Backed off. Yeah.
Right.
Banking is the new way that the government fights terrorism. And they do it by controlling how much money can get sent around the world. My local bank has to write down if I get $1,000 worth of cash out, right? And that's because of all these banking regulations that got put into place to stop terrorism. I mean, they defunded it by stopping dollars from moving around the world, and they'll cut you off. That's why they'll cut you off of your streaming platform if you've that's why it's so hard to monetize. That's one of the reasons, is because criminals and the government are always they're always getting more and more advanced with each other.
Right. Well, when you take the overall, like as far as streaming goes, I've noticed that if you take the money aspect out of it, right? So like if you have other sources of income, like say HEX, is paying your bills and mooning and making you a rich person, well then, you don't care that you're not going to be monetized, right? You just care that your message comes out, and you have that outreach and you're able to do things, right? So one of the things that I vowed to do, I want to make that platform, right? I want to take every single, I want to take streaming, YouTube types like videos, right? I want to take Discord, right? So like, you know how you have Discord, so people can log in and talk or whatever. Those kinds of platforms together all in one. And I want to make it a HEX. I want to make it a HEX platform, right?
Yeah.
That's what I want to do, where there will be incentives with HEX and that kind of thing programmed in, so you can essentially encourage people to stake. Like this. I would have to spend a lot of time developing the system with developers, but eventually I want it to. Hell yeah, dude! I invite you, and it will create incentives for people to stake, right?
Gamify the system, reward positive behaviors, make it like a video game where you're interacting, you have an avatar, you have achievements.
Right.
Dude,
yep. It'll be
genius.
Perfect. And here's the thing. It's not going to be censored. However, it will play the games of the system. So no pornography, no terrorism, right? Don't go out there and say you're going to go raid the nation's capital and stuff like that, right? Anything illegal, obviously, don't do it, right? The letter of the law will dictate you can't do. But if you're sitting here talking about a decentralized asset and you want to make a bunch of money, go do it, right? If you want to go and talk about how you don't like, the president of Zimbabwe, go do it. If you want to go and say, talk your, whatever you want to talk about, that is a freedom of yours to say, as long as you're not inciting violence or that kind of thing to people, do it, right? I don't want to see another situation where people are building something fantastic and it's being shut down because, like an example, Wall Street Bets. Do it. Go ahead and do it. Okay, yeah, you're doing, you're hurting, people's finances or whatever by promoting a specific message, and yeah, you have your degeneracy going out there and wrecking people in the end, getting money. But if you're doing it within the confines of the market and what's legally accepted, then do it, right? Like, even if it's something that's like very radical behavior that's going to harm the 1%, I don't care. I'm not the 1%,
What about what about privacy? Because so for example, the government made it illegal in the past year to mix coins. That's money laundering now. That's a federal crime to go and use Tornado.cash or anything like that, to use any coin mixing stuff in order to ensure the privacy of your finances is that's in crypto. That's illegal if you mix it with people who maybe are up to no good, or if you're, mixing is not allowed. You're allowed. There are other technical solutions, but that's off the table now. So where would you stand on something like that?
So I'm unfamiliar with the term mixing. So is it something where you might essentially trade with someone who has bad intentions? Is that what that means? Or
like, so let's say the Plus Token Ponzi stole like $1 billion worth of crypto from people because they like said that you had money in your account when you really didn't. That was in China. And, if the government didn't like have that crypto now and it was just still like running around, like let's say Arthur Hayes, like we're going to use real examples, like, cause it's really happening, all this stuff. So like Arthur Hayes, like moved to Seychelles. I'm not good at pronouncing things. Whatever that country is, he bought a cave and created a little, I don't know, a little enclave or kind of a indestructible fortress for himself. And then he launched BitMEX, which allowed U.S. customers to illegally do leveraged trades up to 100x with Bitcoin and all get wrecked. And then he sat there at his computer, probably in his boxers, although I don't have proof of this. And he hit the sell button so that everybody would get liquidated down to so that he would be able to get all their money, and then wicked it up to the all-time high as well, so he could get all the people who had shorted, and he made over $1 billion that way, right? So if the U.S. government has said, okay, he did that illegally, or let's take, it doesn't matter, because he was doing deals. He was allowing people to trade coins on his platform that had been stolen coins, scams, terrorists get they get their crypto one way or another. They hack into a hospital, and then they tell the hospital, you're not going to get your medical records back until you pay us $100,000 in Bitcoin. And then they get the Bitcoin and they have to mix it with other people's coins so that it can't be tracked anymore. And so coin mixing is where you go into a pool all in one transaction, and it breaks it into a million pieces. And then on the other side of that block, it's hard for
anybody to trace where the money went.
Yeah,
where
there's
it came from.
a main company that does most of the tracing. I can't remember what they're called right now, but they basically work for the government now, and they track all the coins on all the networks. And David, I think, was just telling me today that they figured out how to track Monero now.
Oh, really?
That's what he said.
Wow. That's insane. Because that was that was one of their key selling points of Monero, is that it's very private. So I think that, transparency is key in any business that, you do, right? If,
where would the line be for your platform? Like, what would be the most egregious thing that you would allow?
Really just a freedom of speech. Like, you can say whatever you want as far as your opinions go. You won't be silenced in that regard. If you're seen to, again, break rules and laws, that's a no-go, right? So if you're scamming people, then no, right? You would get kicked off the platform.
What if it was like Signal? What if it self-destructed the moment you saw it, and so then you could really just say anything?
What do you mean?
I don't know. I'm drinking lots of coffee over here, having all kinds of associations with what you're talking about. But
I wish I was more versed in crypto to understand a lot of the terms.
Signal is what spies use to message each other.
Then if you got people on the platform that you have that are spies that are doing what they're doing, that they're actively plotting attacks against say the United States or attacks against I don't know, people to scam them, right? And not in the context of you're promoting a coin or something, but more or less they're showing behaviors that lead to a Ponzi scheme, say BitConnect, right? Then yeah, that would have to be an investigation, right? And then if it's seen that there's some shady business, there's no CEO to the coin, and there's no people in the background that are showing what they're doing, they're not following their white paper, whatever. Then yeah, that would be red flags, and obviously that they would get kicked off. I think we have enough information currently to make determinations what would be acceptable, what not to be acceptable in crypto.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information now. I mean, when it first came out, it was full of fucking scammers. Oh, sorry. It was full of scammers. There was a whole bunch of people that were, a whole bunch of coins that were scamming people. Yeah. And that was, again, during the whole BitConnect thing. But aside from that, you got a lot of information to go ahead and put people away now in that regard.
I think you're so knowledgeable about so many things. I think we could talk forever, and because I'm so fascinated with your understanding of crypto, and psychology, and streaming, and everything in between. And I know that Wales only has been holding off his stream, so maybe we can wrap up in the next 10 or 15 minutes or so, and then we'll cap this stream at the 2 hour mark, and then we can make sure that 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 we're able to join over there, and everybody get we might have to do a sequel, Joker 2 appearance on Hex Therapy or something, because again I'm excited by your ideas.
Sorry, my kid. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm always willing to come up, and speak whenever I can. I mean, obviously, if I don't know it, I'll be like, hey, I'm still kind of new to this game. I like to read a lot of articles about what goes on. I kind of started back with the whole, I was invested in BitConnect, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got wrecked. I got wrecked pretty bad.
Can you do an impersonation of the like big moment in BitConnect?
Sure.
On stage.
What's up, BitConnect? No.
Right? I knew you would nail it.
My wife wouldn't believe me. She said it was a scam. When I saw that video, I was like, oh no. You know what's interesting about that guy, Carlos Matos? He actually is seeking 5 wives to start a company of like a company and a family together. It's like such a.
Is it also going to be a religion?
I don't know. I don't know. He talks a lot about religion on his streams. He
could go on like Steve Jobs did, and like when he announced the iPhone, like it's an iPod and a phone and a calculator, right? But he's like, it's a business, and you're my wives,
right?
And it's a religion,
right? That'd be a funny meme.
Very successful situation there.
Yeah.
How's he not in prison? What is he doing having 5 wives? Like, did he like die and go to some like heaven or something? Like,
he's seeking these wives. He doesn't have them just yet.
Somebody in the comments.
Yeah, that's exactly. He probably would scream that,
Yeah, when he orgasms, that's what he says.
What's up? Oh my god, that's funny. Oh my gosh, man, crypto is full of characters, man. It really is. I mean, look at Tone Vase and Peter McCormick. Like, they're just like, it's funny. It really highlights how diverse we can be in the different ways that we do things and the different mindsets.
Yeah.
Even with the whole Bitcoin maxis thing. I mean, Tone Vase was looking at Richard like he was like, ha ha, like, you think you're gonna make something? Your coin's a shit coin. And I guarantee you, he's looking at the charts and is like just shaking his head like, how did he do it?
Okay. Well, I've got a little story about that. So of course, Tone Vase was one person who tried to shit all over Richard, actually. And I just saw that 6-hour stream just recently because it's one that I missed. It was the day Hex launched. Richard went on Tone's channel with a bunch of lawyers and got harassed and unappreciated. They tried to trap him into saying that Hex is a security when it's not. And it's like, it was something else to watch. But so I can't report that there's any awareness or justice there. But some people will remember the Christmas stream that Richard did in late 2019 with Brad Mills, who's a big Bitcoin guy. And of course, Brad got on stream with Richard and told Richard all the ways that his coin would fail. Oh, you should have designed it like this. Oh, did you hear about what this altcoin did? You should. And they were all terrible ideas, right? Like just basically Brad like didn't stop interrupting Richard enough to even hear what HEX was. Brad had bought 8 million HEX and then at like 2 Satoshi or 1 Satoshi.
Wow.
Right. So that could have been like over $1 million now. But he sold it, like at, I don't know, break even or something around there.
Wow.
And so Brad was live streaming today and I saw him and I've like tried to message him and say like, hey, I'll give you some HEX, like no hard feelings. But yeah, I couldn't resist. I typed a comment and I was like, I think I was the first person to comment on the whole stream. And he was already talking to this interesting guy who promotes Bitcoin and takes like a African-American approach to it. And but so all I said in the comment was buy HEX and ETH and Bitcoin. And I swear, Brad looked at the comment and he his face changed. He like started shifting around in his chair, like changes the settings on the stream. Like you could see it all. It's on Twitter.
I love that. You can tell when a streamer is upset, when like, and the thing is, they can't really say anything to you. They just kind of like they look down at the chat and they have like that face, like, yeah. I love that. I always do that. Whenever I know that someone is against something that I care about, I just kind of show my face. And then they are kind of like, oh, it's that guy.
Because that tells me that he still checks the price of HEX.
Of course, man. Of course. He knows he got wrecked. You got wrecked, bro. You sold 8 million HEX at 2 Satoshis. Like come on, bro.
Like even more valuable, almost. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe the HEX is more valuable. But like he got to stream with Richard when the project first got launched. He had a deep understanding of how coins work, but he missed HEX. Because he didn't stop interrupting Richard enough to even listen. He was in HEX because he said he put 0.25 BTC into it the moment he heard that Peter McCormick called Richard a scammer, because he thought that the coin would pump just from getting exposed as a scam coin.
So he didn't even hear the point that it wasn't supposed to be a fucking, excuse my French, sorry, a trader coin. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he didn't hear that you're supposed to stake it and you're going to get this high, APY.
He didn't know anything about the coin. He didn't know about staking. Richard was trying to explain it to him. He was like, oh, no, it would have been better if you designed it this way. Let me tell you how Filecoin, all these things nobody's ever heard of. But you can go back and you can, you can watch that. It's on Richard's channel. And then I made a clip of it on my channel. That's like so cringe to watch. It's like 5 minutes.
I definitely gotta watch that. And here it is. Here it is. That's the epitome of people not wanting to get into something that makes them feel uncomfortable. It's not something that's normal in cryptocurrency. It's the one that does it different, right? That's what awesome about HEX is. HEX is the different coin. It is not your typical coin. It does the opposite of what others do, right? It's and when people see that notion, they get super uncomfortable with it. It's really it's really a sight to see, and just know that in order for you to be unique and to do something big, you got to do it different, and that's what HEX does. If anything, if you're caught doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, you're just going to get lost in the fluff. And, what is it? It's the same old thing. It's a scam. Who cares? Goodbye. Right. But literally, if you just look and dive deep into this coin, it's like, it's really, it's almost poetic.
Yes. Oh, I feel you on that.
you know?
And I want to go back to something you said at the beginning of the stream that I thought was very poetic, and has to do with your deep understanding of the psychology of the human mind. How you say that people, they don't want you to tell them about themselves.
So true. Yeah, they don't. Nobody likes the hard truth. And if you don't have the hard truth in front of you, you do not have the information that you need to make a change and to better yourself.
Yes.
If you just put that blanket of positivity, or that blanket of that sugar coated, you're great, on top of the hard truth, you're doing yourself a disservice. Really, you are. You're doing yourself a disservice. And if you do that to your friends, where you're like, keep doing what you're doing, you're doing great, and they're doing bad, you're not doing them any justice, because now not only do they you're making them feel a false sense of like success, but you're not enabling them to repair the problems that are in front of them.
Yes. And when I was getting trained in clinical psychology, I got this super rare form of training that isn't used very often anymore. It's not CBT, it's not DBT, but instead it's interpersonal and psychodynamic. And so in these forms of therapeutic technique, you are able to be real with somebody. You're able to respond to them as a real person. You don't have to use unconditional positive regard, which is Rogerian. Now, of course, there might be certain clients and certain disorders where that works best.
Right.
But as it turns out, in highly dysfunctional family systems, in deep personality disorders, in some very severe forms of mental health, being real with somebody and telling them about themselves is highly effective. So, for example, you're a bad mother is something you would not hear from a Rogerian psychologist,
Right.
but something you would hear from an interpersonal and psychodynamic person, right? Because you're exposing the dynamics, and that if people don't have that level of honesty that makes them uncomfortable, then it makes it difficult for them to grow. As a person who performs psychology in the positive psychology, cognitive behavioral domain, like maybe you haven't done your job if the client doesn't feel better when they leave your office.
That's not even
in dynamic. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, you cried a lot and we got to some real issues, and now you have so much to think about, and you've been you've exposed even for yourself that enough insights about how you can improve. Okay, yeah, now you feel worse at the end of the session. Perfect. Like, yeah,
well, it's
get to work and come back in a week.
yeah, and that's really a big problem, I think, in the field, because you essentially have to have a level of honesty to people that have this horrible, like you're a bad mother, right? If they're a bad mother, like, how do you correct that? And if you're trying
not
to
by telling them that they're a good mother.
Right, exactly.
Oh, no, you're a good mother. You beat your kids, you neglect them, right? There's a difference between telling somebody it's their fault and telling them the truth.
Right. This is what's been going on. You got to correct it. Exactly.
Yes.
You have to give them a course of action. But the problem is that if you make them feel bad and they leave, they're not prone to coming back as a client.
Yes.
That's the problem. That's the trade-off, right? That's a hurt in the system.
Yes.
And you're right. There are some, behavioral intervention plans that could help someone, in like, say, in a conventional sense, where you're helping somebody with like autism or something like that, right? But in this sense, where you're speaking about a mother that you're trying to change her behavior, you have to 100% be honest, and humanity doesn't have any of that. Really, it's all unicorns and bubblegum and that kind of thing, and it's sad, because humanity is trying to be this overly toxic version of itself. And we are not supposed to be that. We're supposed to be real, to identify the problems, to fine tune our approach.
Yes.
You know, it's what we're missing.
One of the last points that I wanted to make, that, you know, I don't think I would have remembered or thought of if it wasn't the Joker here with me tonight, is I had, even though I work with a population of people who are, you know, extremely low income, I learn a lot. I've done 11,000 hours of therapy, and so I've learned a lot from people, and there are people out there that are much smarter than I am, you know, at any income level. And there, one super wise client I had once was, you know, could talk about any level, like any philosophy topic. They would know, you know, all the main people would have ideas that could blow your mind. I mean, this person like wrote a book and it, you know, just like was basically had been studying philosophy like for 30 years, just like, that's all that they did. And so anyway, this person, it was, older and had a lot of life experiences and discovered, social media for the first time.
Wow.
And, that had some crazy insights, and one of them was that that basically you're allowed to have free speech if it's comedy, and that the comedians out there today are the ones who are really delivering the news, and they're the ones who are speaking the truth that people are willing to listen to. And so I think that that's such a relevant thing, right? That people like you and I, if we, you know, if we want to work within the system, sometimes we are gonna have to be joking about it, right?
Have you ever watched George Carlin?
Yeah, somewhat.
He speaks a lot of truth in his
Yes.
comedy. Like, he'll say the craziest things that make people just wail laughing, but he injects messages in his comedy. I love doing that.
Yes.
Because emotions are a window into someone's subconscious.
Absolutely.
If you stimulate an emotion of hate, sorrow, funny, laughter, anything, disgust, those become memorable moments. And
Yes.
you essentially, as you deliver that emotion, or I'm sorry, not deliver, if you stimulate that emotion, you are able to deliver something, a message that will essentially be paired with the emotion during that time that people remember you by. It's it's what I do.
And so that's an incredible thing that you do, and it gets back to the point you made at the beginning of the program of people, they don't necessarily want to learn about the cold truths about themselves, but in the sense, if you're just joking, then maybe they do want to hear about it, right? And
That's right.
Maybe you're helping people that way, in a lot of ways that you can appreciate, and that that I can appreciate as well. So.
Absolutely. That's really the notion of it.
Well, this has been a blast, and I can't wait to do it again. I know that Wales Only is going to be streaming next, and he invited us to join, and so I'll probably pop in over there, and you're more than welcome to. But I just want to know, before we close out here. Let's see. So everybody can find me at allmylinks.com/allin. And let's hear, where can everybody find you?
Trovo.live/the_Joker. It's not
in
hard.
The description already. I've already linked to all your accounts on the YouTube description.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a hard one. Just think the DC character, right? The one that smiles a lot. Come on.
And as we close out here, can can you give me your best Joker laugh?
Sure. What a wonderful stream it was. Thank you very much for having me around here, Mr. Matty Allen, and all the
Thank you.
Hexicans.
Thank you, Joker. And remember, everybody, stake wisely, my friends. Take care.